Well, good evening and welcome to this virtual book launch here with Jen DeTracy. We're coming to you live from Jen's living room. My name is Howard Olson, and it's an absolute privilege to be here with you and Jen this evening. To start this off, I've got a quick question for you. Did you know that according to Jen DeTracy, 75% of business is lost due to a lack of customer engagement? That's a huge number, 75%. That's massive. That's the bad news. The good news is Jen DeTracy has just launched her new book, which speaks to the number one barrier to small business growth, and that is the lack of customer engagement. Marketing expert, professional speaker, and business trainer, Jen DeTracy has been helping small businesses grow through customer-centered marketing for 20 plus years. And she has now channeled all this expertise into her new book, Lift Strategies, Quick Tips to Engage Customers and Elevate Profits. Well, that's Jen, the author, expert, and business strategist. But on a personal note, I've known Jen now for 6 years, and she's become not only a very dear friend to me, but one of my trusted advisors, and probably one of the most important mentors that have come into my life. She's an absolute master at marketing. She's a mentress at it, and she has just proven consistently over and over again that she really has a heart to help small businesses grow and to teach them the things that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. So it really is my pleasure tonight to introduce to you Jen DeTracy, and with that, it's over to you, Jen.
Thanks, Howard. I want to thank everybody for plugging in and logging on tonight. It's great to have you here. What we're going to do is we're going to start with, I'm just going to tell you what's happening. We're going to do, I'm going to read a total of 6 tips from the book tonight, Lift Strategies. And then what's going to happen is in between a couple of tips, we're going to do some live polls to get your feedback, and Howard's going to report on those. And then at the end, we'll do a live Q&A, which Howard will moderate. So we'll start with that. And in terms of the book, I just want to say it is a compilation of blog postings that has happened from all the way back to 2007. The best have been picked and updated in order to make this book a quick, easy read for busy entrepreneurs. So let's start with tip number 1, which is called Stop Marketing. Have you ever worked with customers who actually cost your business money rather than generate profits? It happens, and if it hasn't happened to you yet, then you're definitely an anomaly. The question you need to ask yourself is, when this happens, is what am I doing to attract the type of customers that I don't want? It starts really with understanding who your ideal customers are, and from that standpoint, really understanding what characteristics in the customers that you don't want to attract are you putting out there into the planet. And then once you recognize that, you can stop marketing to those customers. And this may mean changing your message on your website and the way that you communicate, so you're really customizing your message to the customers that you do want to have, as opposed to a message that's going out to everyone. I was working with a 4-star hotel, and one of the challenges they faced was that they did not want to attract sports teams with young people, because the challenge that they faced with that was that while the parents were out having a nice dinner and having drinks in the lounge, the kids were running around and having a great free-for-all time. And this scenario presented a couple of challenges. One was the consideration of the hotel guests that were there staying, and the second was keeping the young people happy and engaged and contained to specific areas of the hotel. So although management didn't want to say no completely to sport teams, what they did was they stopped marketing to them. They didn't include any information on their website, nor did they promote it. In fact, they even set their rates accordingly to deter this particular customer group from contacting them for business. So the question that I have for you is, what is your company doing to stop marketing to customers that potentially cost your business money now and in the long run? So the way that I've done the tip book is I have a short tip like that with a format, and then it's followed by a question. And that purpose of that question is to get you thinking about how that applies to your business. And as we go through the tips, what I'd suggest is, if you hear something today that really grabs hold of you, is to take that tip and set up a game plan for it. And you'll hear more about that as we go through this book launch process. So let's move on to the next tip, which I have to look at my sheet and see which one it is. We are going to read tip 20. Where is your URL? Have you ever noticed how many vehicles have vinyl lettering on the rear bumper or window? For small businesses, this can be a great way to get exposure wherever you go. It can cost as less as $50, and the website address can become a moving billboard. But you know what? What I find really funny is when you see beat up vans and trucks with a phone number or name or website address displayed on the back of their vehicle, because I often wonder if people have the confidence to actually contact those companies with vehicles that look like they're a mess. And what really caught my attention fairly recently is I was driving behind a police car, and on the back of the windshield was the website address www.vpd.ca in white vinyl. It was the Vancouver Police Department, and I thought, you know, if the Vancouver Police Department has their website on their patrol cars, then you know that if you haven't already done this, you're really missing out from a business perspective, if they're already on top of it. And to take it a step further, the police department not only drives people to their website, but when they get there, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's YouTube videos, and a blog. This is becoming the way of the world. So my question to you is, what is your social media game plan? And really this tip kind of covers off two things. It's like looking at how are you going to get your website awareness out there in the most cost-effective ways possible, and then once you do that, how are you going to continue to engage people through social media? So what we're going to do now is Howard is going to bring up the first poll, and I'll just go over the questions with you. And really it's quite simple. We're just very curious, basically, how many types of social media you're using. And you may not be using any, and that's fine. It may not fit with your business model. So the first answer would be 0, the second would be 1 to 2, the third would be 3 to 4, and the last one would be 5 or more. And examples of that again would be Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, blogs with RSS feeds, LinkedIn, those type of things. So that's what we're looking at.
The poll starts now, and please give us your response.
Okay, so if you can respond to that quickly, and what we'll do is while you're doing that, I'm just going to get going with getting ready with the next tip of the book. So Howard, let's just see, we'll give people just another couple seconds,
Sure
and
thing.
then let's pull up the results.
You got it. The poll results are still coming in. They're
Okay.
still rolling. I can see them literally changing second by second.
Really?
So let's just give it
that's
a
cool.
Yeah, you've got a
Okay.
lot of viewers out here in Ustream land. Congratulations.
So when it comes to social media, one of the things that I often tell my clients is that in order to get involved in it, you really have to have what I call a social media evangelist. One person that's just really gung-ho and is willing to champion whatever project that is, whether it's writing blogs or sending out the Twitter posting or Facebook, someone who is technically competent and able to do that work. Because if you don't have somebody in your business that can do that or pay somebody to do it, then you're really sort of not creating the impact that you want, and it becomes actually an adverse thing versus a positive impact.
But so here's how it pans out. How many methods of social media are you using now? 9.01. So 9% of the respondents basically said they're using 0. So almost 10% of you are doing nothing. 18% are using 1 to 2 social media outreach methods. The vast majority of you, 45.45, so 45, almost 46% of you have said that you're using 3 to 4 social media methods, and 27, almost 30% have said that you're using 5 or more social media mechanisms.
Excellent, that's
so there you
great.
go. That's very
That
good.
sounds cool. Well, it sounds like people are very actively involved in social media overall, which is great. Excellent.
We should be back to live now.
Okay, so let's go to tip 64, which is, do your customers love your brand? When your brand comes up in conversation, do people know about it? Do they know what your product or service is associated with your brand, whether it be specializing in modern Indian fast food, women's fitness, or glass repair? If your brand is well established, this is a good thing as long as you have a positive impression for your brand. Yet knowing a brand and loving a brand are not the same thing. Take Apple, for example. I've always been impressed by how loyal their fans, their customers are. Basically, every time a new iPod, iPad, or the latest iPhone comes out, it's almost like a rock concert. You see people lined up down the street, ready to buy tickets or get into the show. That's the enthusiast of a brand lover. Someone who loves a brand is a fan. And fans buy the product or service with frequency. They love the brand because in some way as fans they feel special. They feel a special association with that brand. They feel connected and they want to spread the word. Your ultimate goal should not be only to achieve brand awareness, but rather to develop a customer base that loves your brand and becomes loyal fans of your brand. And this is what builds your business and makes things more successful. And the question I have for you is, do your customers truly love your brand? Okay, now we're going to move to tip 43. I think in a way tip 43 is one of my favorites because it's very current, which is pick up the phone. And in a way this tip is a little bit out of date because at the time I didn't have a smartphone, but basically one Friday afternoon my internet connection went down, and if you've ever been through that, it can be a real pain in the butt. And as you can imagine, this was very frustrating. And I had to rethink my entire day, especially when I found out that my internet connection would not be back up and running till Saturday. So although I had access to my webmail and could receive messages, I could not send messages out. But I recognized there was some time-sensitive stuff, and it was right down to the nth hour, and I wanted to pack up and head up to my cabin for the weekend. So the question is, what did I do? I picked up the phone. When I don't hear back from a client or a prospect or even a supplier whom I've left an important email earlier that day, I don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call them. I believe that we live in a society where we have become too dependent on texting and email in particular. It has become our primary form of communication. And earlier this week, I remember at the time when I wrote this tip, I was talking to a sales rep for a publishing company, and he was telling me how much easier it is just to simply have a conversation and answer all the questions as opposed to go back and forth by email. And I have to agree. If you're in business, and I think actually, Howard, this is your thing, if you're in business, you're in the relationship business.
Absolutely.
And that means balancing your email, your texting, your in-person, and your phone calls. So the question I have for you is, when is the last time that you picked up your phone? And I think that's a perfect segue into our next poll. What do you think?
That is a great question to get a poll response. I'd be very interested in the sales training business. I'm very interested to hear what people out there have to say about their use of the telephone in the social media age. I think a lot of people. I don't want to prejudice the results. So why don't we just bring the poll
All
up?
right. How many follow-up calls are you making a week? So is it 0? Is it 1 to 2? Is it 3 to 5? Or is it 6 or more? And those follow-up calls can be not just to clients and prospects, but it can be to suppliers, it can be to strategic alliances, anyone that you have put out information to and you want to follow up with. So let's see what kind of results are coming in. I can see them streaming in as we go.
And the percentages on all levels of answer are shifting literally by the second. So this is very interesting. There's a lot of response coming in. So we need to let this one run for a moment. So ladies and gentlemen, just be patient with us because we're tabulating your results.
That sounds good. And Howard, because you are, one of the top sales trainers in North America, what do you say to people around the telephone? Maybe you can just talk about that while people are...
Sure. So while these responses are coming in, I mean, what I'd like to say about that is that, I think social media is a wonderful tool. I use it, you use it, I think we all use it. But it has just become another reach out method. It's become another vehicle to create awareness of who you are, who your brand is, and to really attract customers. I mean, you're in the marketing business.
Yeah.
And marketing is about getting the phone to ring and getting people to know who you are. Selling is about converting, and like you said, we're in the relationship business.
Yeah.
And in my experience, you can't well, or it's far more difficult to convert a sale and to make a relationship through a series of tweets. At some eventuality, you do have to pick up the phone and have a conversation and really bring your relationship into a new level. So I think the telephone is still one of the most vital business tools that we have today.
Okay, great.
Yeah. All right.
Perfect.
So it looks like the results have finished coming in. So the question was, how many times a week are you using the telephone for follow-up calls? And 10% of you have said none. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you 10% get a hold of Jen, and she'll help you. She'll help you find a better way to use the telephone to build your business. It seems that 30% of you are making 1 to 2 follow-up calls a week. 40%, that's good news. 40% are making 3 to 5 follow-up calls a week. And let's see, 20% are making 6 or more. So the numbers, once again, 10% are making no calls. 30% are making 1 to 2 calls, 40% are making 3 to 5 calls, and 20% are making 6 or more calls. So congratulations, 60% of the people on this stream tonight are making somewhere between 3 and above 6 calls per week. So
that's awesome.
Good for you, and I'm certain that if we're going to take a different poll and start looking at results, you're the ones that are having the best results because we are in the people business.
Yeah, that's cool.
Back to you,
and
Jen.
I want to thank those people that have been on the poll and contributing their feedback. That makes it, statistically more viable to have all of you participating. So thank you very much for that. We're going to go to tip 31, which is called the 9-month principle. As entrepreneurs, we're often impatient. Can you relate to that in any way? I know I can. We want business to fly through the doors right now. We think that if we write an article in a local trade publication, attend a few networking events, and hire a computer geek to boost our rankings on Google, that we will have instant and fruitful results. This is rarely the case, unfortunately. I equate the time required before seeing successful results from organic marketing to be similar to that of the time it takes for a baby to come into this world, 9 months. A lot happens between conception and birth, and this is true of attracting and retaining customers. And from my experience, it takes 9 months of attending a networking group before you build trust and get business. It takes writing quarterly articles and trade publications at least 3 times or more over the course of 9 months before you're going to reach your sales targets. And often we lose sight of how important frequency is in getting results. We lose perspective because we may be planning an event 6 months in advance prior to the launch, and in the prospect's mind, however, the promotion just appeared yesterday. Mm-hmm. Committing to regular and consistent promotional activities before we decide whether to what is actually working and what's not working is very important. We need to put ourselves in the shoes of the customer and realize that they're just starting out to find out more about our business and what we have to offer. And the question in this tip is, what is the first commitment that you're going to make to the 9-month principle? Now there's 2 comments I want to make on this tip. One is, the reality around marketing is you can't just do one marketing initiative or one campaign and really expect to see the fruits. So it's what I call a layering process, which I talk about in the book. So you want to get one thing going and have that going successfully, and then add on other things. So one thing in itself isn't going to have the impact. The other comment on this is that I have worked with a lot of businesses where we get a campaign rolling and they get cold feet because they expect the results to happen right away. And I think there's a balance between going with your gut instinct and getting caught up in the fear of it's not happening and it's not happening right now. And so this is why the 9-month principle is so important to keep in mind when you start initiating marketing activities and getting into that you have the patience and persistence and the stomach to wait it out over that time, and at the same time frequency is critical. And now I'm going to wrap up with tip number 2, then we're going to go to a question and answer. And so tip number 2.
So can I just interrupt you?
Yeah.
May I interject?
Yeah.
So as Jen is reading these tips, you might even have some questions. And so we want to invite you to use the chat panel here. And if you have a question that you'd like to ask Jen, we'll be able to handle those on the fly, live time with you. So, and here's my encouragement to you. If you're thinking about it and if you've got a question, somebody else is probably thinking the same thing. So help them out, ask your question, And this is a great opportunity to pull some wisdom from one of the greatest marketing minds, certainly on the West Coast, definitely in Canada, and you've got access to her right here, right now.
Great, thanks, Howard.
Yeah.
Okay, tip 2, is your message meaningful? Have you ever read an article or heard a speaker who's an expert, but they're not willing to share their expertise with you? There's always a string attached. The string is you must sign up for a course, buy a book, tell 5 friends before you get that one little golden nugget. And if you want to offer value to your fan club, give them the straight goods. Tell them something that's useful right away. Make it meaningful, and when you share your expertise, people will likely lean forward and say, "Can you tell me more?" Take, for example, the insurance business. I worked with some clients in the insurance business, and I have to say that there's a lot of information in that business and there's a lot of products, and it can be quite confusing for the buyer to know what's the right product or service to purchase. So in the case of that organization or company, they can get a website happening, they can tell stories about successes, client successes, stuff like that, and help the customer or prospect understand what is possible for them so that they can wrap their head around it. That's one thing. I've been working with a client for a long time in the hearth industry, and one of the things we decided to do to create a meaningful message for our database, because they design custom fireplaces for architects, designers, and builders, was to ask the audience, when you receive this quarterly newsletter from us, what is the most important information that would be relevant to you? And what came back is they wanted to know the product trends in the marketplace. So we put that in there. So it comes down to really finding relevance. So when the information is relevant to who you're sending it to, the readership and the engagement will be much higher. Making your message meaningful, and then what happens is that you'll notice that there's a greater return on investment. And the question here is, what type of information would be meaningful for your fans and your ideal prospects? We have to remember that people, just like this book, which has quick tips in it, people are busy and they're pulled in many, many different directions. And when you get someone's attention and their time, it really comes down to valuing their time as important, and from that, making sure that what you're saying to them is in fact relevant. So I think that's where we're going. Now, before we go to the live chat questions, one thing I want to mention is Lift Strategy's quick tips to elevate customers and to engage customers and elevate profits. This book is available on Amazon, and if you go below the video where Howard and I am, you'll see that there's a link that says Lift Strategy /books, and if you cut and paste that link, you can see that the book is available Amazon.ca, Amazon.com, and so on. So if you're interested in purchasing it, that's where you can find it. So let's go to the live chat. Is there some questions?
There are some great questions in here, and the first question is coming in from a gentleman named Josh. I'm not sure where he is, but he says, what is the most underutilized marketing tool in your opinion?
What is the most underutilized? I think that the most underutilized tool still is the website. I think that people are not maximizing their engagement. One of the things that I work with clients on through other partners is, how do you get people, once they get to a website, a lot of people are leaving right away, which is called a bounce rate. They come onto the home page or they come onto a certain page and then they're gone. So getting them to stay means engaging them further. So how is that happening? Is it happening through connection with social media? Is it happening through YouTube videos? Is it happening through an engaging article? And part of that is having really great content that grabs people and speaks to them, as opposed to just brochureware where you're just a talking head talking about something on the website. So I think that that is a portal for a lot of different stuff, and that really people aren't utilizing their websites to the degree that they could. Yeah. Great. That's the main thing.
Cool. Well, that not only is that a great answer, but it's a great segue into one of the other questions that I see here. It says, you were talking about where's your URL, and you gave the example of the VPD having the URL on the back of the police cars, and said, for small businesses, it's also an underutilized tool. Why don't you just put your URL there where people can see it? So the question that has come in, is it valuable just to give the URL, or should I have a tagline and a URL?
Right.
What do you recommend here?
That's a good question. Well, I always think about the principle around billboard advertising, where they say on a billboard, 8 words or less. And I think it depends on what the URL is. If the URL is really obvious, if it's homerenovations.com,
Okay.
then really it's probably not necessary. But if the website address is not clear, then I think there has to be some kind of tag to
Okay.
connect people to that product. Now I'm conscious of the time. I can see that we're coming on to almost half an hour. So unless we have any other questions, I think we should probably just give it a wrap up
Okay.
at this point. So I just want to say a couple of things before we go. Thank you very much for joining myself and Howard Olson today. Howard Olson is from High Output Training as one of North America's top sales trainers. And I'd also like to thank our man behind the camera, Josh Reamer, who is not only a great video expert, but also specializes in YouTube marketing. So if that's something that you want to know more about, you can be in touch with me. And I'd also like to thank my family, my parents and friends for being a part of this project. It's been a very exciting project, and I just am grateful that they have been in my life and been here. And thank you for tuning in, and we will see you again soon.